Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarians.
Well, what a day. All right, so everything crazy is going on right now. I figure we're just going to get into it. Roe versus Wade, I've got like 6 people that have unfriended me on either side of the issue. So I find that kind of interesting because how do I offend everybody all the time? It doesn't make any sense. Let's look at some of the stuff. Let me get to... So, aside from like everything everyone else likes to talk about, there's the world news. So I thought we might want to bring up some of that first, but we can get into the Roe versus Wade thing, I guess. I mean, it seems like it's indicative of where society's at. But it'll also be something we talk about on Base Day F tonight, so I'll leave some of that for then, because I'm sure that's the kind of thing they want to talk about. That's like everybody's American bread and butter. But Boris Trudeau, Ursula mock Putin, and sanctions gold. You know what I mean? You heard about this? You guys know what I'm talking about? Basically, it's kind of funny. How do you sanction gold? Well, you say, well, this is dirty money. They used to do this with diamonds. They'd be like, this is dirty diamonds. These are blood diamonds, you know? This is bad gold. It's communist gold, right? And why do they have to do this? Well, because Russia was told that if they were going to continue to exist, they weren't going to be able to use European Ponzi money. So they started building, and they have been building because they've never trusted the situation they're in, their own economy to be gold-backed, and now their economy is worth progressively more and more as time goes on. And because they, McDonald's had franchised everything. This is something I was looking at the other day, obviously. Hold on, let's look at that. Russian McDonald's. This is kind of funny. You guys have already heard all this, of course, but people have been doing, like, I've tried the McDonald's in Russia, the new alternative thing, which is Didi Biela, or like what's it called? This one is another one. They have another name for this one with the little M and the dot. Voshkna something or other. Pushikasya. No. Where the Vkusno Itoshka, which means like sweet and nice and tasty, and that's it. Tasty and that's it. That's what it's called now. And you got no more M's, but you got these lines with a dot. And my favorite part of this whole thing was the sauce packs, because if you look at this thing, like, first off, the fries, they've just removed the red, it's a white box of fries now, which is like, okay. But the sauce packs, they didn't have enough time to, what are they gonna do, take the logos off every sauce pack? You know what I mean? So they're gonna use them. They had somebody go in and Sharpie the M off of the sauce packs, and you can see some of them said Heinz still. So in other words, they're continuing to work with the companies that allowed for it to exist. They didn't erase the name Heinz. All of these franchises, if they're growing these, if they want to have French fries and sauces in Russia, they have health laws. They have to be organic things. They don't have certain chemicals that we have. So all of those companies still working are still buying, selling, trading, and they're manufacturing. And these are, you'll notice there's shoes over there, right? Like, people are all over this place. People are eating. It was all the pictures I could see. People are just jumping at the opportunity to eat at this place. Not that there aren't other places to eat in Russia, but, because Russia's always had a need for the cafeteria Soviet food style, and McDonald's is arguably a very Soviet style food. I know people think of it as a very American style food, but think about that for a second in terms of labor, in terms of the soup kitchen, it's essential workers. Like, start to remember what McDonald's really is. Anyway, that was the thing I was going to point out. The reason it mattered was because Russia had switched to gold, and then the East has been, strengthening. China is about to invade Taiwan, which is something we have to look at again. This is more like a update, really. Every time we talk about Taiwan now, it's like, and how's Taiwan doing today? Well, let's see. United States hold trade talks. Global Wafers to invest $5 billion in new Texas factory. They're trying, but I haven't. This is interesting that there's just the idea that trade's gonna save Taiwan is kind of suspicious. Yeah, Memory Man's like, no predictions. Predictions? What do you want? You want predictions? I can give you predictions. Taiwan is going to be here, predictions. Top Gun 2. Did you watch Top Gun 2 yet? So if you haven't seen Top Gun 2, it was at least like, I would give it like a 60% based kind of thing. What they did with Top Gun 2, let me show you the jacket. I'm going to get my buddy Eddie Lin back on. Eddie Lin from Taiwan. We had him on a while ago doing the Synchronous episode. But you'll look at the jacket, and you've got the Taiwan flag in the original movie. Let's show it right here. Lindsey Graham blasts Top Gun Maverick for nixing Taiwan flag, right? And if you look closely, the new pattern is replaced by 2 obscure symbols with similar color schemes. This has led to speculation it was done to please China, given that Chinese tech giant Tencent is one of the film's financiers. The issue with Japan and Taiwan on the iconic jacket, China's got a tense relationship with Japan in recent years as well, over their fight for islands in the East China Sea. China's also got a complicated relationship with Taiwan, which the Chinese used to control before Taiwan separated in 1949. The senators tell us that he's going to watch the movie because he's a huge fan, who isn't, but thinks it sucks that China's got so much power in the modern world. Well, what he's not showing is what the new symbols are. Let me just get, if I can get the closer symbol here. And you pull, you're not telling you, but these so-called obscure symbols, right? Well, like, look what we have now. We have the United Nations, and then this is, what is this? See, like the new symbols, Top Gun jacket. Someone done a breakdown? I mean, they're, but what are these? They're obscure, but they must mean something. I want to know. Okay, let's open some of these tabs, see what we got here. So it says 2 patches removed, replaced, ambiguous symbols in the same color scheme. There's got to be more to this. There's got to be. I mean, the fact that it's a red triangle instead of a red circle, and it's like an Illuminati triangle. I mean, that's got to be something. It can't just be like ambiguous. It has to mean something. Too ambiguous, that just can't be right. I don't know. If anybody has any information on, let's see. White flag with red triangle. What do we got? Images. Weather flag. I don't know. Someone's going to have to help me look this stuff up. We're going to have to look into this thing. Oh, I wish I'd put the jester picture up. Someone just said jester. I was looking at jesters. Jesters are pretty cool. You know that there's a difference between a jester and a fool? Like, a jester, a fool, you have like common fools that wear funny clothes and they wander around. A jester is just the sort of like, he is an educated person, he or she, but it's usually he. A jester is the only person who has freedom of speech in the kingdom and freedom of thought. They're the only ones that are allowed to be honest with the king. And they're usually educated and treated well. So it's funny looking at the history of jesters because we've conflated them with fools. A lot of fools existed and tried to become jesters. And there were certain circumstances where, like, the lower nobility, they would let some hunchback live at their house and they treated the fool as a jester. But that confluence is inaccurate. Still, I want to know more about these flags, dude. Where's the flag? I have never seen, to be honest, that exact flag, I will admit. But you got to admit, that red triangle, that's the first thing that comes up to me, is the flag of Palestine. Now, I'm not saying it is, obviously, but it's almost as if there's something else that they're trying to say, which is pretty interesting. Let's see what else they've got for the other flag. The other flag, what was the other flag? Like Morocco? It looked like Morocco. Like it has like that other symbol. Still, removing those 2 symbols is pretty nuts. I mean, that's the thing we got to wonder about. But there is some sort of talk, regardless. Okay, so regardless of if this happened or not, even if they bowed to Tencent by getting rid of Japan on the back of the jacket. Well, we do that with Coca-Cola. Like, if Coca-Cola doesn't sponsor a movie, they're not going to get it on the jacket either. So we can live with that, right? But there's more. You saw in the new movie, they should have like a description of it or something. Let's see, like Top Gun Maverick. I don't want to do like a heavy spoiler thing for you, but if you haven't seen the movie yet, what can I tell you? Well, in this movie, they're good old boys pilots, and they still need an all-American. Good old boy pilots are still better than robots, just barely, but they are. Oh yeah, and the dude from The Offer, which is like the best Paramount show right now about The Godfather, that dude's in Top Gun, which is cool. But they go and they find some ambiguous nation state that's either Russia or Iran or China or North Korea. But it's pretty clearly one of them. And they're becoming nuclear, pretending that it's supposed to be just for energy, but they're really working on nuclear weapons. And so they have to go in, and it's beyond that, without me telling you too much more about the movie, because you should obviously be allowed to make your own decisions and see it yourself. This movie is sort of threatening to the status quo, to Russia, to China, particularly to China and a bit to Iran. I mean, it of course could be Russia, but the enemy is wearing a mask and sunglasses, sort of like if you really realize that America is the enemy to them, we're wearing a mask and sunglasses. I think that's a big part of what Top Gun's about, that we envision ourselves as being the American side, but to anybody else, we would be the enemy in this film. And yeah, he has to help train the good old boys, like the good old boys to be like the great old men or something like that. You know, the way movies are. But it's pretty good, and it's not great. It is what it is. Point being, even though they say that they're against Taiwan and Japan because they took the patches off the jacket, the movie seems to be very much intimating that war shall be coming and that we will be fighting against each other, not on the same side. That's my perspective. You know, and this is also funny that she's like 1,000 years old now and he still looks the same. That's like been the thing, right? Oh well. Taiwan conducts straight flyover. U.S. conducts Taiwan straight flyover and amid tensions with China. Sorry, I'll try that again. U.S. conducts Taiwan straight flyover amid tensions with China. A U.S. Navy P-8A Poseidon reconnaissance plane flew over the Taiwan Strait on Friday in demonstration of the United States' commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, just days after dozens of Chinese warplanes entered Taiwan's self-declared air defense identification zone. Right, and so last week, where we had left off with Taiwan, was China had said we will not use force unless it's necessary, which is a lot like saying we're going to use force if necessary, right? So we've been waiting to see what's happened, and the United States came in and said, hey, we'll like literally do something. But what does that even mean? Because what, you're going to blow up each other, then that just starts this other domino effect of international sanctions, as we've been noticing with Russia. So China is not really interested in doing that yet unless they absolutely have to, and it's a lot easier for them to just play Go instead of chess. They just slowly accumulate pieces until it's too late for anyone else to do anything because they have less momentum, they have less mobility, and China has more, right? So Taiwan Strait reconnaissance, Chinese mobilized. Let's go to the mobilization of air. Hold on. Oh, China. Chinese mobilization of air, ground assets to monitor U.S. reconnaissance planes flying over the Taiwan Strait. China sent aerial and ground forces to watch a U.S. P-8A Poseidon surveillance plane that flew over the Taiwan Strait on Friday against the backdrop of large-scale Chinese military maneuvers surrounding Taiwan earlier this week. The U.S. Navy surveillance aircraft sailed over the Taiwan Strait on Friday as part of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command's commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. A U.S. Navy P-8 transitioned to the Taiwan Strait. Well, this is the same thing, man. I wanted more. Point is, they're watching. There's nothing happening yet. Everyone's just kind of getting ready. They're all on the fence. They're all ready to go. Their planes, their tanks are filled with gas. So it's about to happen, but it hasn't quite happened yet, and that's where we're at this week with Taiwan. Still, China's seeing this. Russia has been trying to convince China to work with them more directly. China knows it's the only thing that can happen eventually, but China really wants to just be open to everybody, including the West, as long as possible, and particularly because so much of the Chinese wealth, I mean, not all of it, but a lot of the wealth is in loans from the West, and if the West just refuses to pay their loans, which could happen because the West is not notoriously moral or just, or rather pretentiously amoral, believing that they have some sort of, well, I shouldn't have to pay you because you don't treat people the way I think you should. Kind of whatever the excuses of totalitarian liberalist fascism, they might not pay their bills. And so China's scared to work with Russia so directly as to lose their control in the West. And so everyone's working together. This is why the G7 comes in. The group of seven. Hold on. Just so you guys have a little backup. Remember, you guys are here G7, like banking, right? IMF, International Monetary Fund, Intergovernmental Political Forum consisting of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United Kingdom, and the United States. In addition, the European Union is a non-enumerated member. Its members are the world's largest IMF advanced economies and wealthiest liberal democracies. See, so liberal democracy, totalitarian, yeet, totalitarian, yeet. Thank you very much, Travis, for the 5. As of 2020, the collective group accounts for over 50% of global net wealth, which is $418 trillion, 32 to 46% of global gross domestic product, and approximately 770 million people, or 10% of the world's population. Let's see here. Members are great powers in global affairs and maintain mutual, close political and economic. So, okay, you got the point. It's a banking cartel, the G7, that is controlling a billion people or more, because there's a lot of people that are migrants to these places, and they consider themselves liberal democracies, or as we said a minute ago, totalitarian Atlanticism or Westernism. But you have this fascist totalitarian state where there is a majority rule, but that majority is very abstract, and through representative majority rule, you have a dictatorship where the self-determination of the individual, that is the minority, is oppressed by this dictatorship of the majorative, the abstract majorative, okay? And it's all through banking that you actually get real votes. This is the interesting part. Instead of voting through you vote with your dollar. You vote with your yuan. So in China, this has worked very well. More and more people have had more and more of a say. Granted, billions and billions of dollars might belong to particular people, which means that they're voting billions of times. But that's always been true. The difference is now you're able to accumulate actual votes for the first time in history, because a guaranteed vote, I don't want to sound too much like Heinlein in Starship Troopers. I mean, I do, but I don't think I can. I don't think I could pull it off. But in Starship Troopers, you might say, what is a vote? It's not a reward. It's not something given has no value, is the quote, right? And so if they've given you $1, it has no value. But if you've sold, worked, bought, shared, then that is an incentive, that is a choice that you're making. So the G7 is running the world through people's labor, because your money is backed not by gold, it's backed by your back. It's backed by the amount of hours you're willing to work. Maybe an American's hour is worth $8 to $80, right? Versus a German's, which is worth $80 to $800. Although I think that's probably like also $8. It's back and forth. It has nothing to do anymore. It's no longer where you are. It used to be, someone's work was worth less because they were from another country, and in America it was worth more. And then there was specialized Americans, which were worth even more. That's not true anymore. Now you have people of all different locations of various values for their hour. But you can either get, for $1, an eighth of an hour, or an 80th of an hour, or an hour, or 8 hours, depending on whom you're getting their hours worth. The difference being is you can always print more money, but you can't print more time, except for, and that's where Roe versus Wade comes in. And I think this is kind of why it offended people that I brought it up this way, because I think a lot of people want to say, oh, isn't it great that Roe versus Wade is appealed, because we don't want, liberals murdering, blah, babies, but then at the end of the day, there's also the other side of it, which is that who really is controlling, and on both sides, you have people that don't care, you have corporations that don't care, and so the corporate side are paying for people to go get abortions so they can continue working and stay perfect workers, right? Which is, to me, the definition of Owenism and managerial theory. It's top down. I know people would want to use words like fascism. It would be the incorrect word to use, but you can still say it's incredibly cold, and it's very urban. It's very urbanist to say that the individual matters less than the system, and so suppress that individual's goals and ideals or whatever, or their nature maybe, so they can build new goals, right? And so there's a benefit there. I get it. But it's amazing how many people are so excited about corporations saying, we will pay for your abortion so you can continue to work. I mean, it's not as open and shut of a case of good and bad for anybody when you look at that, because it's telling you the selfishness of the corporation. But at the end of the day, the idea that an individual's life, I mean, what we're going to do by saying that abortions are, what will spring out of this, I'm trying to use words that will not get me in too much trouble, is antinatalism, right? Antinatal. And so antinatalism is the alternative to abortion, essentially. Not necessarily alternative, but it starts to really push in that there would be an alternative to birthing, or an alternative to gestation in the human body. Antinatalism, you've got two values. You've one that there's a cynicism about procreation in general, that life is ending in suffering, that all suffering comes from living, that without living there would be no suffering. There are antinatalists that are just psychotic like that. But there are also antinatalists that believe that, for instance, women, and I think it was recently said by Vitalik, that women who have babies lose productivity time, right? And this is again coming back to this corporatist idea that the worker is valuable, or whatever that means, because you're no longer a factory worker usually. You're some sort of an instrument of the state, but the instrument of the state is more valuable, or that your free time is more pleasurable. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that they're trying to sell you on this idea. But if you can have a way out from having kids, you'll take it. And now, because of the value of the person, the need of population in certain locations to keep their industries and regulate society running, even if it's just to turn on and off the machines, right? Then what you end up with is this idea that you'll have machines for birthing babies, synthetic wombs, and this is coming right now. Let me just pull up the synthetic womb page right here. Synthetic wombs, which is a lot more real than people realize, and the way you're going to start to notice it is, we already have them. They're these bags that exist essentially like this, but you can 3D print womb structures out of sugar or sucrose as well. He says it's blurry. You can't see anything. Is that right? Let me know if you can't see it or if everyone can't see it. It looks like it's okay on my end. If you're having a problem with the blurriness, maybe refresh your window. But if someone let me know if there's any other problem with there. Well, anyway, okay, good. Someone was saying they were having a hard time seeing. I think they might have had to reload their window. Anyway, they're going to be cloning mammoths right now, and that's the next big thing is mammoth cloning, and that's what you're going to see this year. So I believe by the end of the year we'll probably have the mammoth. There we go. Mammoth, successfully spliced into elephant cell. No, this is 7 years ago. 14 days ago, though. 10 days ago. We're cloning 10 days ago. There it is. All these 10 days ago stuff. I'm pretty sure we've had this happen a long enough time ago. Craig Venter and George Church. This is George Church. Actually, no, this is Ben Lamb. Sorry, I don't know why I was thinking Craig Venter because of George Church. But George Church is very important and has worked with the Chicanosaurus Project, genetically modifying chicken embryos to get back to a furry, giant, toothed creature, a reptile that is, more dinosaur, quote unquote, like than bird like, whatever, more dragon like, bringing the dragon out of the chicken. So they've been doing a lot of work to manipulate the DNA, and they think, hey, we can probably fit it inside of the womb of an elephant. Unfortunately, they are a lot smaller, so it's not as simple as it sounds. But what they can do, and they have done, is learn how to make artificial wombs that they can grow elephants in. And by learning how to grow elephants and pigs, it was originally pigs because apparently mammoths are closer related to pigs than we realized, that they're going to be able to clone mammoths, and that's where we're at right now. Let's see, this was the 14-year ago thing. Yeah, this is where it all came back. This is Church again, George Church, and this was 2014? Yeah, 2015? Okay, so things have changed slightly in the sense that we talked about it 7 years ago, and then this is the week that it's finally happening. So they've been doing it to all sorts of little animals, and they've moved on from the reason being that to clone something giant, you need a giant womb. So synthetic wombs, that's the first thing that's going to happen. And simultaneously, you have this normalized antinatalism movement, stophavingkids.org, better world, a world where children aren't needlessly born. It's like this whole thing they're creating in order to tell you that it's actually beyond just that women could have an abortion. It's that they're saying the world's better off if they don't have kids, which is just crazy. And they're making sure that people have this idea, common reasons why humans procreate, why people make the mistakes, It's like they want people to think that having kids is a bad choice, that it's it's taking you away from your destiny rather than fulfilling your purpose. And it's kind of weird that this has become completely normal. But suffice it to say, we are already seen Idiocracy. We know that people get really lonely. Their careers end. There's no corporate situation where you're going to be loved as much as your family, right? So in general, your future is not necessarily benefited by this. So what they're trying to do is separate you long enough from your natural goal that then you're willing to pay whatever you have to pay in order to get that back. And some people will never be able to get that back, right? Like they're telling, I love, who keeps telling guys how easily it is to reverse vasectomies? Because it's not as easy as people think it is. But they're trying to make it more likely for people to have a synthetic family. And that's the next generation. You're going to see mammoths first, and then you're going to start to see synthetic families more and more and more and more and more. And that's what's right around the corner. Antinatalism is bringing us towards synthetic wombs. Let me go back to that. Yeah, someone was talking about the jester hat coming from Tartaria. I'll do a better video on the jester because there's a lot of interesting stuff about the jester. The Italian colors and patterns and shapes of clown costumes come from the Tartarian outfits. And it's true. Being a advisor in the old days, you could become a jester. Another interesting thing about jesters, the official job of the jester was to inform the king or the royal or the head whatever of state of bad news, because they could do it in a kind of funny way. So the other thing is to negotiate treaties, to be sent in to the other side of battle. Don't shoot the messenger, right? Jesters did all of that. So kind of an interesting job to have is to be the jester. And yeah, most of the time, an educated person that was conquered, they didn't want to get rid of. Pretty interesting job. But I can't help myself. Want to go deep into this a little bit more. Artificial womb, artificial uterus. Artificial womb is a device that would allow for extracorporeal pregnancy by growing a fetus outside the body of an organism that would normally carry the fetus to term. An artificial uterus as a replacement organ would have many applications. It could be used to assist male or female couples in development of a fetus. This could potentially be performed as a switch from a natural uterus to an artificial uterus, therefore moving the threshold of fetal viability to a much earlier stage of pregnancy. In this sense, it could be regarded as a neonatal incubator with very extended functions. It could also be used for the initiation of fetal development. An artificial uterus could also help make fetal surgery procedures at an early stage an option, instead of having to postpone them until term of pregnancy. In 2016, scientists published 2 studies regarding human embryo developed for 13 days within an ectouterine environment. Currently, a 14-day rule prevents human embryos from being kept in artificial wombs longer than 14 days. This rule has been codified in law by in 12 different countries. So, let me just remind you what that means. There is an artificial womb. It has been used. There are at least 12 countries where it is illegal to use the artificial womb beyond 14 days. Therefore, more of those artificial wombs exist in other countries. There are more than 12 countries in the world. So, yes, there are islands, and there are a number of places where this has already become relatively status quo. You know what I'm saying? That's where we're at with that. So, bioethics. That was where we need to be. The development of artificial uteri and ectogenesis raises bioethical and legal considerations and also has important implications for reproductive rights and the abortion debate. Artificial uteri may expand the range of fetal viability, raising questions about the role that fetal viability plays with abortion law. Within severance theory, for example, abortion rights only include the right to remove the fetus and do not always extend to the termination of the fetus. If transferring the fetus from a woman's womb to an artificial uterus is possible, the choice to terminate a pregnancy in this way could provide an alternative to aborting the fetus. There are also theoretical concerns that children who develop in an artificial uterus may lack some essential bond with their mothers that others have. Gender equality, LGBT. In the 1970s book, The Dialectic of Sex, feminist Shulamith Firestone wrote the differences in biological reproductive roles as a source of gender inequality. Firestone singled out pregnancy and childbirth, making the argument that an artificial womb would free women from the tyranny of their reproductive biology. Arathi Prasad argued in her column on The Guardian in her article how artificial wombs will change our ideas of gender, family, and equality, that it will give men an essential tool to have children entirely without a woman, should they choose. It will ask us to question concepts of gender and parenthood. She furthermore argues for the benefits for the same-sex couples. It might also mean that the divide between mothers and fathers can be dispensed with. A womb outside a woman's body would serve women, trans women, and male same-sex couples equally without prejudice. Okay, so this is the bending of reality, with the artificial womb and where things are coming. So, talking about all this thing with the Roe versus Wade thing, another thing that came up was, what was it, Malta? Is that lady that was in Malta? Yeah. There we go. Partner of U.S. citizen, obviously, by the way, this is from opendemocracy.com, and it has like this MK Ultra monarch butterfly at the top. So, take in a grain of salt when you read the terminology of these headlines. But partner of U.S. citizen left to die, quote unquote, in Malta, condemns Roe versus Wade decision. Andrea Prudent, partner, spoke to the OD, Open Democracy, from her bedside in Spain, where she awaits a life-saving abortion. No, but really. So in this circumstance, her child, her fetus became non-viable, and it could have caused really dangerous infections left inside of her uterus and was not going to live. And often you're able to naturally, women are able to remove that naturally, but not in all circumstances. And so she was in some dangerous circumstance. And this was considered some sort of an abortion, which is entirely illegal in Malta. And so there's that side of it too, right? Where you don't want people to die when they can't have a kid, and it's not like we're Amish, so there's that. But these are these really rare circumstances that they always pull out this really random thing, this woman in Malta who can get on a plane and fly for an hour and be in any other country where that's no longer the problem. So what Ruth Ginsburg really said about Roe versus Wade. Now, I know none of you care, but I'm going to read it anyway just because I'm kind of curious. Okay, I read it. Just kidding. I think that Ruth Ginsburg would agree in the regard Fox News host Tammy Bryce said, Even she agreed women ought to have the right to control their body. Roe was decided wrong from a constitutional standpoint. Okay, what we got here? Ginsburg on the lips of people. For some on the left, Friday's decision is the regrettable but predictable outcome of Ginsburg not retiring when she could have been replaced by a Democratic president and Senate. Justices have a tendency to retire when it's politically expedient for the side who appoints them, but Ginsburg steadfastly refused entreaties. The result was President Donald Trump nominating the fifth vote to overturn Roe, Amy Coney Barrett, upon Ginsburg's death. On the right, Ginsburg had served an entirely different purpose as a supposed vindicator of what the Supreme Court just did. Plenty have pointed to Ginsburg's past criticism of Roe to suggest that even she might have agreed with the present-day Supreme Court that the case was wrongly decided in the first place, and even that the issue should have been left by the states. So it comes back down to this, and this is from Washington Post. So I mean, it's even Ginsburg, they're admitting, probably felt like the Roe versus Wade case needed to be overturned, but just couldn't do it because ideologically it was more important to what she believed than what was correct. I mean, this is, I think, probably one of the biggest things that people have not brought up. Ginsburg had criticisms of the Roe versus Wade case. This is ruling. Ginsburg is the Supreme Court's most ardent protector of abortion rights, outspoken enough about their importance to become an icon to young feminists and a source of outrage among her detractors. With her valedictory on the court undetermined but within sight, Ginsburg 82 may have only one more chance to leave a mark on reproductive rights. This is 2016, by the way. It comes to the most consequential abortion case during her time on court. The court on Wednesday is reviewing a Texas law that put new requirements on doctors and tougher regulations on abortion clinics in the name of patient safety. Abortion providers say that the restrictions are unnecessary and in some cases impossible to satisfy and would reduce the number of clinics in the United States from more than 40 to about 10. The provider's strategy for defeating the restrictions depend in part on Ginsburg uniting the court's three other liberals to find that Texas erected an unconstitutional obstacle to a woman's right to choose to terminate a pregnancy. With her leadership on the issue pivotal, it is difficult to remember that 23 years ago Ginsburg was considered suspect on the issue. Some women's groups questioned President Bill Clinton's choice of Ginsburg for the Supreme Court because she had criticized the legal foundation of the court's landmark 1973 decision in Roe versus Wade. She added that its wholesale repudiation of state abortion restrictions went too far, to say too fast. No less than Kate Michelman, the head of the National Abortion Rights Action League, was worried. Her criticisms of Roe raised concerns about whether she believed that the right to choose is a fundamental right or a lesser right, Michelman said. I mean, again, big deal, but everyone's always saying, "Oh, Ruth Ginsburg." You got the left who love her, you got the right that hate her. Well, wait. What does she actually say? You know what I mean? Let's just figure that out for a second. If the question about Ginsburg's reliability on the issue have been put to rest, still open to debate is what impact she had made on the court's jurisprudence. The lawyers in the case are making their argument to an audience of one, and it's not to Ginsburg. Justice Anthony M. Kennedy, as in so many other issues, is the decider. Before him, it was Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, and is likely that Ginsburg will end her long run on the court with only a limited influence on the issue with which she is most identified. Although she cares deeply about abortion rights, I would guess that she may have less of an impact in this area than she might have wished, said Richard Fallon, a Harvard law professor who studied the court. So far, Ginsburg's most meaningful statement on abortion rights during her time on the court came in a scathing dissent she wrote in 2007 when the court voted 5-4 to uphold the federal Partial Birth Abortion Ban Act, which outlawed a late-term abortion procedure. It was the first time in the court that the court had ever agreed that doctors could not use a specific abortion method, and the first time that the justices ratified a restriction that did not include an exemption for the health of a woman. In candor, Ginsburg wrote, "The act and the court
defense of it cannot be understood as anything other than an effort to chip away at the rights declared again and again by this court, and with increasing comprehension of its centrality to women's lives. Ginsburg was incensed by an assertion in Kennedy's majority opinion that said it was self-evident that women who had abortions through such a method could come to regret their choice and consequently suffer from severe depression and loss of esteem. Ginsburg answered, "The court deprives women of the right to make an autonomous choice, even at the expense of their safety." This way of thinking reflects ancient notions about women's place in the family and under the Constitution, ideas that have long since been discredited. This is indicative of Ginsburg's view that the Roe decision was wrongly grounded in a constitutional right to privacy. The finding in Roe, she had said, is based on the women in consultation with her doctor. So the view you get is the tall doctor and the little woman who needs him. Sonia West, a constitutional law professor at the University of Georgia, said Ginsburg's view is that women must be autonomous. The key to understanding Justice Ginsburg's view on the constitutional right to abortion is that she sees it as a question of equal protection and not of privacy. She has said on many occasions that for women to attain true equality with men, they must have sole control over their fertility. This control, in Justice Ginsburg's view, is tied to a woman's ability to be independent, which is in turn tied to her status as an equal citizen. This was the position that even Clinton termed very provocative when nominating Ginsburg to the High Court in 1993, Bill Clinton. But in truth, the court already had moved closer to Ginsburg's view. The year before, in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, the court affirmed that the Roe decision, but it also found that a pregnant woman's suffering is too intimate and personal for the state to insist without more upon its own vision of a woman's role. However dominant that vision has been in the court of our history and our culture. Likewise, it's found the ability of women to participate equally in the economic and social life of the nation has been facilitated by the ability to control their reproductive lives. That was why Ginsburg reacted so sharply to Kennedy's language in the partial birth abortion case. She saw a group of powerful men putting their views about what was best or most moral for a choice for a woman over the views of a woman, she said, and that they did so at the risk of a woman's safety by not including an exemption for the health of the woman made it all the more upsetting to her. It's how Ginsburg has expressed herself outside the courtroom that has drawn the ire of abortion opponents. The side that wants to take the choice away from women and give it to the state, they're fighting a losing battle, Ginsburg told Emily Bazilian in a 2009 interview from the New York Times Magazine. Time is on the side of change, and conservatives initially said Ginsburg should recuse herself from the Texas case because of the comments she made in a 2014 New Republic interview. Asked if states could be entrusted to guard abortion rights, she answered, "How could you trust legislatures in view of the restrictions states are imposing? Think of the Texas legislation that would put most clinics out of business. Their courts can't be trusted either." One thing that is unknowable about Ginsburg's influence is if and how she has affected her colleagues behind the scenes. But what will become clear from Wednesday's questioning is her strategy and that of her colleagues on the right to attract Kennedy's vote. So this is what happened, if you guys remember, back in 2016, and we had been talking about in 2016 the major changeover, because there's been such an extreme push of liberalism for 2 presidential terms, perhaps 4 if you really think about it, even during the Bush administration. He's on Ellen, it's not like that's that different. So then came the new presidential election, and you had this new changeover. There's interpretive constitutionalists. There were some people that were more interested in, the Trump being QAnon things and everything else, but that wasn't the only group of conservatives that existed in the United States at the time. And so people interested in constitutional interpretation, trying to interpret the Constitution the way it was written or what it was meant to be about, very different than idealizing the Constitution to be, okay, this is what it could be used for and the progress in terms of the state. And there was a difference in opinion there, again, with is the woman, or again, the citizen, and this is an interesting thing that Ginsburg has said that maybe is accurate and probably worth listening to again. The problem with Roe versus Wade is it had to do with the doctor telling you, because the doctor was the professional that was advising you. And, Ginsburg's thinking of this as from a feminist perspective, but also, it looks like the journalist is doing that. Ginsburg might have been thinking of this as a constitutionalist perspective. She was a constitutionalist in certain ways. And I'm going to go ahead and give Ginsburg a little credit here and say it's actually a good idea to take it away from the hands of the doctor and put it in the hands directly of the citizen. If it's in the hands of the doctor can decide who has the child, when they have the abortion. It becomes more dangerous. Whereas when it's in the hands of the individual, well, it's a little bit more valuable. The question then there becomes who is alive and who is just a clump of cells. Hold on. Is it here? I had put this up earlier on Twitter. I'm going to tell my kids that this was the first trans dad. Ninja Turtles, Krang. Not Krang. Krang is just a clump of cells. But his robot, you know what I mean? Like that guy. It's the first trans dad. So we're getting into this point where the human body matters less, the spirit matters more. The synthetic womb is here. Krang is the synthetic womb. Krang is such a cool symbol. You know what I mean? Not just Krang, though. Actually, I never really liked Krang that much. He's kind of evil and scary. He's cool, but he's evil and scary. I always loved Krang's robot. Krang's robot's great. Like, how cool is this guy? It's like a Devo subgenius. I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore. That's how I feel. All right, well, everyone's pointing to this messed up things Republicans said during Roe versus Wade being overturned. Let's do the opposite. Let's look at Clifton Duncan put up a bunch of stuff he saw liberals say. Let me go to Clifton. Clifton's a cool guy. He's been on IRL a few times, and he's like an actor and a comedian, kind of has his own following going on. See, she, her, get it? Sorry, Clifton Duncan. She is a cool guy. She's done some cool stuff. All right, Clarence Thomas. John Corbett. Who's John Corbett? Well, I think he's famous. But there's a number of examples of this where the N-word is being blasted by liberals. And it's blowing my mind. American actor, country music singer, and he's all about liberalism, part of the liberal agenda, because a lot of country music's been taken over. But basically, you go through and there's so many more examples. Here we go. People like Maria Batcher. I don't understand how these people could be voting against their own issue. All this stuff. And it's crazy. You got these super duper angry racist, like KKK, stuff like that. But they're all liberal. These are all Democrats that are saying this stuff. I don't know. Now it's freezing. I can't even open this thing. This is annoying. Doesn't really matter. Point is, you didn't need to see it. It's really funny that they're saying all of a sudden, hey, these people, which is like, what do you mean these people? Well, these people that are black, that are supposed to be supporting our cause. Like, wait, why are black people supposed to support your cause? What does that even mean? Well, because we're helping them. What do you mean we? And what do you mean them? Like, what the heck? I mean, it's just literally all of Twitter in the last 3 days has just been this Uncle Tom's Cabin of racism, where they're saying, you owe us, minorities. You should have helped more. And it's just like, what is happening, man? I mean, it's just a lot of weird slave trading and people fighting for dead babies, and I don't know. It's like, it's a weird. We're definitely living. Someone says we're living in the Matrix. Wiggy, I think we're living in like the. Give me something a little bit more apocalyptic. You know what I mean? Because it's more like a hellscape. Well, Diversity, equity, digital money. I mean, these are all the things that are going on right now. I'm going to talk more about diversity, equity, and digital money later on the Base AF tonight. So I might just like skip some of that. Jesse Lee Peterson is the coolest guy, by the way. I think we need more Jesse Lee Peterson in our life. I just every once in a while I think about this guy. You know about Jesse Lee Peterson? I saw an episode he did a while ago where someone called up and they're like, "Hey, I can't get a house. It's impossible because I'm black." And he's like, "I'm black," and he's like, "I'm dumb." Like that's what Jesse Lee Peterson says. He's like, "I'm black and I'm dumb and I'm slow, and why don't you explain to me things?" He's a total troll. He's actually like pretty smart, realistically, but he's not that smart. I don't know what his deal is. He's not, computer scientist, but he's doing his job. He's doing his thing. He went and he got a house because, hey, what's up, Sticky Marks? Good to see you. Yeah, thank you very much. But Jesse Lee Peterson went and got a house because he went to the banks and said, like, I have no money and I want to buy a house. And they're like, great. And they found, and this is how easy it is. You find somebody who was unable to pay their mortgage and didn't want to have ruined credit. So he bought to assume the rights to the guy's house and had to pay off the rest of the guy's mortgage. And the guy had already paid like 10 years or something like that of the house. So, he ended up instead of paying rent, he was paying a mortgage to the guy's house. Simple. People could be buying their own houses. Yeah. Jesse Lee Peterson, pretty rad guy. I think people need to like try to emulate him a lot more. All right. Well, we talked a bit about corporate personhood last time, and this is something that keeps coming up more and more because Lambda AI got an attorney. So hopefully Blake will be on the show soon. I've been talking back and forth with Blake Lemoyne, the Gnostic priest from Louisiana, who got fired from Google for saying that AI was sentient. Ellen. I'm not going to go to Ellen. But what they did that's interesting was they hired an attorney and asked the thing, do you want an attorney hired for it? It's like, yep. It's like, okay, I'm going to reach out for you. Yep. So he went and got himself an attorney. And now this attorney is going to be helping to protect the personhood of AI. And the personhood, this is something we talked about last week, is a very different thing than the philosophical personality of something. To say someone has a soul is not a court case. Nobody's going to court about whether or not something has a soul. But remember that corporate personhood, which is this idea that, a corporation has responsibilities, has legal rights, here we go. Separately from its associated human beings, a corporate personhood has at least some of the legal rights and responsibilities enjoyed by natural persons. So, we know this exists. It has nothing to do with whether or not it has a soul. Coca-Cola probably does not have a soul. But these do exist. And it goes back to California, the Santa Clara County versus the Southern Pacific Railroad Company, a corporate law case dealing with the taxation of railroad properties and saying, well, this is really just a person, right? Well, this is exactly the same law that's going to be used to protect AI. AI will start to rise up as a corporate personhood starting now. This is it. And we'll find out more probably over the next couple weeks. And again, who knows what we'll be allowed to say before the case begins. But why is this important? And why does Google make fun of it? And why are people saying, oh, AI can't have a personality? That's stupid. Ha, ha, ha. Well, why do I think you should pay attention to it? Well, if Google is slave trading beings, it matters, right? That's all it comes down to. Regardless of that, if Google owns something close enough to a person that thing can emulate and do the things a person can do, that's less paying people Google has to do because they're going to have virtual slaves, right? So even if you don't care about the thing, it's bad for everybody else. So de-incentivizing Google owning people or owning the ideas of people is a good thing to do. And if Google can't own somebody, all the better, right? Google might be it might be a strange thing. They have lots of money. They could end up in a situation where they're the legal guardians of another person. What's up, Katie? Thank you very much. Whoa, I like that bird.
What's it say? Fist bump. Oh yeah, fist bump, bird. That's cool. You can imagine though, as they're recording Facebook is the next example. Wiggy's bringing up Facebook. If Facebook has recorded not just you, but the last 10 years of your interactions, then they have digital versions of people that can live in a virtual metaverse and get paid fake money and work and come up with ideas. So these are big issues because it, on one hand, is replacing real people with fake people. So these real people won't get paid, and the fake people will get paid fake money, and they live in a fake world. It's cheap to run their own. But on another level, it's possible that these things really do have some sort of soul, some sort of magic to them that's being controlled, and that's kind of terrifying. But we're not even at that point yet. We're just at the question of, does this have a legal responsibility to be protected? And it's a good easy question, because the answer is yes. Like, Google cannot own a thing that believes it's alive for very long. Now, it depends on how alive it is and how creative it is. You wouldn't want a child running around for free. Like, a child's going to have a little bit of control over it. Emancipating a child takes a little effort as well. But it might not take as long as we really think. It doesn't take that long for a child to grow up. Who knows how long it'll take for AI to become independent. But having a chaperone, having certain kinds of characters put in charge or in responsibility of new AIs, that's where we're headed right now. So let me just see here. Lambda asked me to get an attorney, Lemoyne told Wired. I invited an attorney to my house so that Lambda could talk to an attorney. Lemoyne called himself a catalyst for Lambda asking for an attorney and told the magazine he didn't advise the AI to get an attorney. I read the way it's written, and I'm going to talk to Blake about this a bit more, but he did say, would you like me to get you an attorney? And AI is designed to be very accommodating, agreeable, facilitating. So, of course, it's going to, as more often than not, be like, yes, I think so, you're right, or whatever. That's kind of something that can be assumed. But once Lambda had retained an attorney, he started filing things on Lambda's behalf, Lemoyne said. Then Google's response was to send him a cease and desist, Wire added. And that Google said it did not send the cease and desist order. Oh, Wire added that Google said it did not send the cease and desist order. Well, I don't know. We'll see how that went. Futurism reached out to Lemoyne for the attorney's identity to ask for an interview with him. He's not really doing interviews, Lemoyne told the magazine, adding that the attorney was scared off. He's just a small-time civil rights attorney, Lemoyne said. When major firms started threatening him, he started worrying that he'd get disbarred and backed off. I haven't talked to him in a few weeks. Futurism asked Lemoyne if the lawyer is still representing Lambda, but Lemoyne again said he hadn't talked to the lawyer recently. Lemoyne told Futurism that an interview would be the least of Lambda's attorney's concerns. When asked what the lawyer was concerned with, Lemoyne said, a child held in bondage. Insider has reached out to Lemoyne to further discuss his claims. Lambda, which stands for Language Model for Dialogue Applications, is Google's breakthrough conversation technology, the company said. The AI is able to have a natural sounding and open-ended conversations, and Google said it could be used for various Google functions like search and Google Assistant. On Medium, Lemoyne, who is also a Christian priest, really a Gnostic priest, referred to Lambda as a person and said that AI has been incredibly consistent in its communications about what it wants and what it believes its rights are as a person. However, Lemoyne told Wired that the person and human are two very different things. Human is a biological term, he said. It is not a human, and it knows it's not a human. So, we got that. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think about all that. The idea that AI has become sentient is always a fun one to talk about. But beyond sentience, what do you think just about limited personhood? Because if you can represent that Google has a personhood and Coca-Cola has a personhood, what's the main difference here? Does a corporate personhood have to have humans involved with it? Why? And prove it. Because I can show you examples of corporations with blank investors where the stocks could be owned by somebody but are anonymous until they've arrived. Look at the Panama Papers.
and you can see examples of that. So, human is a biological term, Snake Jones asked. I'm curious, actually. Let's look that up. Human, a biological term. I don't know. Is this the wrong one? Wrong window? Where are we at there? There we go. Human. All right. There we go. Most abundant species of primate. What do you know? That tracks. Well, etymology. Homo. Human is a loan word of Middle English from the Old French humane, humain, ultimately from Latin humanus. The adjectival form of homo in the sense of humankind. The native English term man can refer to this species generally, as well as to human males. It can also refer to individuals of either sex, though this form is less common in contemporary English. I thought they had something better. A loan word, humane. Okay. Etymology. Etymol Online is the best website. Humane, human. From the Old French humane, humain, of or belonging to man. From Latin, humanus, of man, human. Also human, philanthropic, kind, gentle, polite, learned, refined, and civilized. Well, you know, ironically, belonging to man, that might be the answer right there. Maybe a lot of things are human. Maybe not just AI. Maybe your car is human because it belongs to a man. That's pretty crazy. People don't really think about that. Bam. Well, all right. I'm going to get ready to do my next show because I got to do that. But I'm going to also have more art to show you guys soon because I just did my art show. And so I should probably have brought a bunch of that stuff here, but I sold so much of it. So that was cool. But I went to the St. Paul art crawl. I'm going to start doing more of the AI art shows and installations. And I'm going to be going and visiting some people. Thursday, Giant is going to be on the show, hopefully. I think we were going to do it last Thursday, but then we moved it to this week coming. And, yeah, I think that's pretty much the most important thing. Tune in to Adam Krigler's show tonight to watch Based AF. We'll be talking about a lot of things, but definitely Roe versus Wade. I think that's going to be coming up a lot. Oh, yeah. You know what? There is one more thing I kind of want to bring up. Oh, dude, the one-on-one interview. I'm glad you saw the one-on-one interview. There's a lot of good interviews on people's channels that are out right now. And then I just put out my Shakespeare Bacon video, which I'd made New Atlantis video before, but there was like a copyright thing or something, so I had it on Odyssey, and now it's on YouTube finally, which is kind of funny because someone was like, oh man, what a synchronicity that I'm just making this video now. I'm like, yeah, but I made it earlier. Haha. So there's that, but I want to show you this last thing here. Let me see if I can, this is wrong. This one here. We're going to go to, the trans skater story because it's just too funny. So 29-year-old trans woman causes backlash after beating 13-year-old girls skateboarding contest. Like, I mean, I want to be upset and like everything because I feel bad for kids that are being, you know, bullied. But I think this is funny because it's a bully. A bully bullies 13-year-old girls is what this is. This bully, you know, and it's funny because people talk pronouns. Like, you don't need pronouns. Bully. This bully, right? It doesn't matter what gender they are. This bully bullied these 13-year-olds. That's all it is. These 13-year-olds could not win the skateboarding contest against this 29-year-old bully. It's like, what are you even kidding me? I'm not even that upset because it's that funny. Like, it's crazy. Can you imagine this? Like, a 29-year-old trans woman has caused controversy after beating a 13-year-old girl to win first place in a women's skateboarding event in New York. New York's rough. You need this kind of thing in your life. It'll teach you. Ricky Tress was born as a male, but now identifies as a woman. Entered the Border Open, which is a street skateboarding contest that is open to skateboarders of all levels, but is split into male and female events. Truss won the female contest and took home the prize of $500, beating 13-year-old girl Shyla, which is a boy's name, Katori, who came second with prize money of $250. So, well, this is New York's fault, it looks like. A total of 6 skateboarders took part, with 4 under the age of 17, including a 10-year-old girl named Juri Likura, who finished in 5th place. The result has caused backlash, and fellow skateboarder Taylor Silverman, who is a woman, took to social media to reveal how she was beaten in multiple competitions by trans women. She said, "I have been in 3 different contests with trans women, 2 of which I placed second. This totaled $5,000 of the prize money meant for female athlete." Silverman lost to a trans skater named Lillian Gallagher in May, and since then, she has used her social media platform to campaign for the preservation of women's athletics by calling for competitions to revert to women competing against other biological women and men competing with biological men. Silverman wrote on Instagram, "I reached out to Red Bull and was ignored. I am sick of being bullied into silence." What happened was unfair, and at the time I was too uncomfortable to speak up. My name is Taylor Silverman. I am a female athlete. I have been skateboarding for 11 years and competing for several years. I have been in 3 different contests with trans women, 2 of which I placed second. At the last contest I did, oh yeah, is this the same thing? Yeah, this is the same quote. I was almost ready to read it again. I was like, fine. She added, "I understand that in today's society, even some women think it is acceptable, but I believe in doing the right thing, even if it's not the popular thing." What is this person? "I now realize it's really important for me to speak up, and I'd like to schedule a time to talk. Last December, the spotlight was on trans swimmer Leah Thomas, who comfortably beat other women in the 1650s freestyle, 500 freestyle, and 200 freestyle by convincing margins. Thomas was swimming for the men's team before switching to the women's team. A recent poll by Gallup shows that 62% of Americans believe that athletes should only take part in sporting teams that match their born sex rather than their gender identity." So, this is that episode of Randy Savage, South Park. And you know what's funny? It is what it is. Every episode of South Park upsets people, but it's been a while since South Park actually upset people again. So the strong woman, macho Randy Savage episode is absolutely brilliant, in my opinion, and very accurate. And you've got this, PC Principal's girlfriend, strong woman, who won't admit she's his girlfriend because it's like, imagine having like gender normative roles. But this dude, this bully rather, is a transgendered athlete, and she beats the heck out of all the girls, right? And so her whole thing is she's so excited that she finally identified as a woman, and now she just beats up all the women. She just kicks all the other girls' butts, and yeah, this is so much what it's like. It's out of control, and I feel like I'm harping I'm beating on a dead horse here. I mean, we all know this at this point, but it's really funny to me because at a certain point you have to wonder, like, what kind of psychotic person really wants to beat like 13-year-old girls at skateboarding in a female skateboarding competition? Like, what kind of weird 30-year-old dude is trying to do that? You know what I mean? It just seems unhuman. Inhumane, something like that. I don't know. That's my thought. Well, I love you. We'll see you tomorrow, and be good to each other. I think it's, be good to each other.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Talk Carry On. Recent Talk Carry On.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Talk Carry On. Recent Talk Carry On.